Okay, thanks, Anna. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Star and I'm an Energy Corps intern with the Network for Sustainable Tomorrow. Also on our team tonight is Adam Flint, our Director of Clean Energy Programs, and Anna Bertel, our Sustainable Energy Coordinator. I'm also joined by Jeremy, the other Energy Corps intern, and tonight we'll be talking a bit about our organization and diving deep into our HeatSmart program. All right. So HeatSmart Southern Tier is just one of the programs that NEST has to offer. The Network for Sustainable Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization located in Binghamton that works with community partners to generate social, environmental, and economic justice and equity in the greater Binghamton area. As part of our mission, NEST strives to catalyze new initiatives, as well as doing outreach and education to support the growth of a stronger and more resilient Southern Tier. As you can see here, we have many different programs such as Southern Tier Solar Works and Binghamton Community Power, but tonight we'll just be talking about HeatSmart Southern Tier. So a quick overview of what we'll be covering tonight. First off, what is HeatSmart Southern Tier? Why it could be a good program for you. Then we'll be going over the HeatSmart technologies. Jeremy will take us through the incentives and financing available. We'll go through the steps for participating in the program and end with a short Q&A. And if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the chat or just unmute during the Q&A. So first off, what is HeatSmart Southern Tier? This is one of several NYSERDA campaigns that connects the public with local experts who offer clean energy technologies. NYSERDA is supporting communities across New York State in implementing community-based outreach and education programs for clean heating and cooling. HeatSmart Southern Tier specifically works to educate the local community on sustainable heating and cooling through webinars like this and tabling events. As you can see at the bottom of this map, HeatSmart Southern Tier operates in Broome, Tioga, Shenango, and Delaware counties. So let's take a look at where we stand now. This diagram shows the primary sources of greenhouse gas emissions in New York State. And as it turns out, heating and cooling buildings is close to the leading cause as it produces 30% of our greenhouse gases. It's our aim to reduce this proportion by promoting and enabling people to switch off of fossil fuels and onto more efficient, clean energy technologies. Some of the biggest draws to participating in the HeatSmart Southern Tier program are the individual benefits, such as reducing your energy costs and increasing your home comfort and safety. Some broader benefits include reducing greenhouse gas emissions and raising awareness about the importance of clean energy. You can also make a positive contribution to Endicott's Clean Energy Communities campaign by participating in HeatSmart. Here at NEST, we work with different municipalities across the Southern Tier on becoming clean energy communities. This is a program that's run by NYSERDA and incentivizes municipalities to make clean energy and other sustainable improvements. Communities can earn points with each action that they take, which add up to awards such as grant money. The Village of Endicott is a participating municipality in this program, and you can help contribute with HeatSmart. Oh, you can go to the next slide. By getting energy efficiency improvements on your home through this program, Endicott will earn various points towards awards. The technologies that we promote mainly deal with weatherization and heat pumps. The goal of weatherization, such as insulation and air sealing, is to protect your home from the outside elements in order to maximize energy efficiency. Heat pumps are technologies that provide renewable and efficient energy that you can use for heating and cooling your home. The kinds that our program focuses on are ground source, air source, and heat pump water heaters. So now I will quickly introduce our installer partners. HeatSmart Southern Tier partners with competitively selected and NYSERDA approved installers to implement the technologies that I just mentioned. For air source heat pumps, we partner with Air Source LLC and NP Environmental. For ground source heat pumps, we partner with Daily Geothermal and NP Environmental once again. And for home performance and efficiency, we partner with the Insulation Man. And Jess from the Insulation Man is with us on the call tonight, so she'll be around to answer some questions during the Q&A. And Leah from Daily and Dave from Air Source may also be joining us in a little bit. And as we discuss our program tonight, just keep in mind that it is good to start this process and get in touch with installers earlier rather than later, as wait times for installations have been increasing recently. You can start this process by filling out the form on our website, but Jeremy will cover that a bit later as well. So the first step, if you were to go through our HeatSmart program, is weatherization. Weatherization is the practice of protecting a building and its interior from the elements, such as sun, rain, and wind, and modifying a building to reduce energy consumption while maximizing energy efficiency. If you were to get a heat pump, it's important to first ensure that your home is properly insulated. These heat pumps work most efficiently in properly insulated homes. There are many benefits to weatherization, including increasing home safety, as well as improving home comfort. If your home is properly weatherized, it will reduce drafts, improve humidity control, improve indoor air quality, and reduce the risk of ice dams. And possibly most importantly, weatherization will help reduce energy consumption and costs. With a tightly sealed home, there's a lower chance that any heat will leak out of your home and the unwanted cool air will infiltrate your home in the winter. Overall, weatherization makes your home more comfortable to live in and more energy efficient. This graphic helps show why having a properly insulated home is key to energy efficiency. Leaks will tend to occur in areas of a home where insulation is lacking, which is why having a tighter seal around your home will save you from using and spending more on energy. The arrows throughout this house depict the most common places where there's air leakage. Warm air often leaks out of your home through ducts and spaces in your attic, as you can see by the red arrows on this diagram. Outdoor air can also leak into your home through vents and spaces in your basement, shown by the blue arrows. Weatherization combats these issues of air leakage. If you have concerns about temperature regulation, ventilation, air quality, or dealing with moisture problems, it might be a good idea to look into weatherizing your home. Now we will move on to heat pump technology. Heat pumps are an alternative system for heating and cooling your home. While traditional systems use fossil fuels, heat pumps use electricity and offer a more sustainable way to heat and cool your home. So you might be wondering how a heat pump works. This graphic provides a visual of how air flows through this type of system. And if you have a refrigerator or an air conditioner, you already have this type of technology in your home. There's heat all around us in the air and in the ground, even in the winter. Heat pumps transfer air into a space or out of it instead of burning fossil fuels to produce heat. There are 3 types of heat pumps that we'll be covering tonight: ground source, air source, and water heaters. Ground source heat pumps, as well as heat pump water heaters, can be used to heat domestic hot water. Ground source heat pumps are also known as geothermal. About 6 feet below the ground is a very stable temperature, and geothermal systems circulate fluid in pipes below the ground that transfers the warm energy from the ground into this fluid. Heat is then concentrated through electricity and compression and then circulated through your home. During the warmer months, it works in reverse, transferring the warm air in your home back into the ground. As you can see, there are 2 different types of closed loop ground source heat pumps. There are horizontal loops and vertical loops, with horizontal loops being more common as it's more affordable to install. This is because the coils are closer to the surface and requires less digging. To know what type is best for you and your home, it is important to first get an energy assessment. There are many benefits of ground source heat pumps, including the positive effect on the environment, your energy bill, and your home. The system is very efficient in heating and cooling, which means lower energy bills. It's long lasting and it removes fossil fuels from your home. You can also heat hot water in addition to your home. The other type of heat pumps are air source heat pumps, which work similarly to ground source, but they take heat from the air and pump it into your home. These are usually a ductless system and do not require underground pipes like the ground source heat pumps. This allows for quick and easy installation. Air source systems consist of one outdoor unit, which is linked to one or more units inside your home. These units come in various styles, as you can see above, to fit different aesthetics and cost preferences. They operate similarly to an air conditioning unit, however, they run in reverse as well to provide heat. Similar to ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps allow for energy savings. Air source heat pumps are also very flexible because you do not need to replace your entire heating system if you don't want to. Allowing for zone control in your home, you can get just 1 or 2 heat pumps and use them for a couple of rooms. This can allow you to have air conditioning without ductwork and to maintain different temperatures in the different rooms of your home. You can also get a full heating system replacement if you would like, but it's not necessary. Lastly, these heat pumps are known to be very quiet. Now, the last technology that we'll cover tonight are heat pump water heaters. The heat pump technology that we've been discussing can also be used to heat water. Heat pump water heaters are basically an electric water heater with an air source heat pump on top. They use indoor air to heat the water and usually have a backup system to meet high demands. Similarly to heat pumps, the main benefit of using this kind of system is higher efficiency. While a typical electric water heater uses electricity to heat water, a heat pump water heater uses hot air that is already around the unit to heat the water, which reduces the amount of electricity that is needed for heating. Heat pump water heaters also provide dehumidification benefits. And now I will pass it along to Jeremy to take us through the incentives and financing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy. In this part of the presentation, I'll be going over the incentives and financing options that are available to you when you start a HeatSmart project. In this section, we'll be showing you a few different tables like this one, where we have a ton of information. But I just wanted to mention that we'll be sharing these slides after the presentation, so don't worry about trying to memorize them as we go along. NYSEG and RGE customers are offered a variety of residential incentives to make heat pumps more affordable. As you can see, this is a pretty big table, but there are various types of rebates available for each type of technology, and the rebates are based per unit or per heating capacity. For air and ground source heat pumps, incentives can range from the low thousands to as much as $10,000, depending on the system. And for water heaters, depending on the type you use, can range from $100 to $1,000. Some relevant information to understand is that incentives generally vary based on the size of your home and the size of your project. There are also tax credits available to you in addition to the previously mentioned rebates. Thanks to the recent passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal tax credit for ground source heat pumps was increased from 26% to 30%, and the $300 air source heat pump federal tax credit was restored. There is also a $300 tax credit for heat pump water heaters. And in addition to that, New York State recently implemented a new tax credit for ground source heat pumps of 25%, up to $5,000 of installation costs. There are also many financing options when it comes to these projects. NYSERDA offers 3 different loan options. The first is a smart energy loan, which you are qualified for up to $25,000 in terms of either 5, 10, or 15 years, with an interest rate of 3.49 or 6.99%. Another option is the on-bill recovery loan, which has the exact same conditions as the smart energy loan, except it's paid on your utility bill over time. Lastly, there is the companion loan of $25,000 in terms of 5, 10, or 15 years under 7% interest. And this loan can be added onto one of the previous 2 loans if you need extra funding or if you have a larger project. A couple of other options can be financing through a specific heat pump manufacturer or securing a loan through your local bank if you get more competitive interest rates. I should also mention that the interest rates offered are dependent on your income, so people with lower income will be able to receive lower interest rates. Our installer partners also have 0 interest loans on a time-limited period, which they'll be able to tell you more about as you move forward with the process. In terms of income eligible programs, through Energy Star, there are home performance and heat pump incentives. This provides those who meet the income requirements as seen in the table with a discount of 50% off project costs. The discount goes up to $5,000 for single family homes and $10,000 for 2 to 4 multifamily homes. Lastly, through Empower New York, there are certain income eligible incentives as well. These incentives are available to homeowners under 60% of the state median, which is shown in the table on the right, that also pay the utility bills. If you are HEAP eligible, you can also get up to 20% off of full project costs, while non-HEAP eligible projects can get up to $10,000 off. These all include heat pumps as well. In terms of home energy audit incentives, a residential energy audit from an installer is free although this does not include any diagnostic testing or tools. A full energy audit, on the other hand, does include diagnostics, but market rate customers must pay a fee for this service. Low to moderate income customers can get this service for free under the condition that they fill out a joint application with an installer and have an energy efficiency or heat pump project completed. So if you're interested in anything that was discussed in this webinar, including weatherization or heat pumps, here's the process to get started. First, you'd sign up for a home energy assessment and/or a site assessment from one of our installers. Then you'd receive a quote for energy improvement. After that, you'd sign a contract for the desired systems, and then you'd apply for incentives and financing. And finally, you complete the installation work. To sign up for any site assessments, you can visit our website, nynest.org, and fill out a form telling us what you were looking for, and that will get the process started. And now I'll be passing over to our Director of Clean Energy Programs, Adam Flint.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. Next slide. So we have a new offering, which is a community shared solar project. And this is for income qualified NYSEG customers only. This project is still in the development phase, but we are signing folks up now so that they can get in line for a 20% discount over what they're spending for their current delivery and supply charges. So the basic way in which community solar works, next slide, is that an array, a larger array like the one you saw in the previous slide, has a certain amount of power that's generated over the course of a year. And depending on how much electricity you use in the course of a year based on your NYSEG bill, the developer will calculate what they need to allocate month to month onto that bill. And so the net result of that is a 20% saving. So you're not actually receiving any of the electrons coming from that array. It's purely a financial arrangement. And the utility does the crediting on the bill, so there's no separate billing. This has a number of different benefits in addition to saving on electricity. The developer we work with, Citizens Energy Corporation, is a union shop, and the lead contractor that they select will be hiring from union locals, IBEW, and laborers and so forth in this area. And in addition, you can benefit the person who's actually owning the land. And this developer is also going to be putting in pollinators rather than grass, so there'll be some environmental benefit. We anticipate that this array will be generating electricity next spring. And because this discount is deeper than any other projects available in NYSEG territory, or frankly anywhere upstate, we anticipate a lot of demand. It's pretty simple. In order to pre-enroll, you just go onto our website at nynest.org and indicate that you're signing up for a community shared solar project. When you see that box, we are going to do some initial income qualification. There's two ways we do that at this stage. One is if your address happens to be in a location where the number of low-income residents is sufficiently high for the state to designate it a geo-eligible area, you just automatically qualify. Or you can self-attest, which basically you say, hey, I'm telling you guys that I qualify for the Heating Assistance Program or TANF or such a program. When the project is ready for actual official contract enrollment, we or the developer would circle back and sign you up at that point. There are no fees of any kind. There are no penalties to leave the project early. It's a very simple and straightforward sort of project. We currently have one project of this kind that has been up and running for a little over a year and a half. That's located on 400 West Shenango Road, on land owned by a retired farming couple. So if you ever find yourself on West Shenango Road, out off Upper Front Street, you can see the first project that we work with citizens on. Next slide, please. All right, well, it's time now to take your questions. And rather than looking at this rather bland slide while we do that, why don't we take the deck off after showing folks our socials. So before we take the slideshow off, just a reminder that if you want to receive ongoing information on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you can follow us there. If you do sign up online, we can share information with you periodically. We never, ever share people's information with any other non-governmental entity and only share it with NYSERDA and NYSEG. So let's take that down and move to questions. And I'm just going to look in the chat here. So Christina asked a question. It actually only went to me. So I'm going to pop that in the general chat here and read it. Are these programs only available for NYSEG Electric customers, or if I'm on Village Electric, would I qualify as well? So the programs that are funded through state energy dollars do require you to be part of the, that is to be a NYSEG customer. There are funds available separately. And I'm wondering what happened to that slide. Do we still have that slide? If you recall, there's some funds available to muni folks. And I'm wondering if we took that down because Delaware Electric Cooperative doesn't qualify, but munis do.
Yeah, we did take that slide down because for the Delaware co-op, it doesn't count. But I can find that and put it back up.
Yeah, if you want to take a look, and we can throw that back up there. So in order to actually make sense of this for you. So the incentives that exist, again, there's a 30% tax credit for geothermal, and there's the state tax credit. Anybody can use that. You don't have to be a NYSEG customer to use that. The NYSEG incentive that Jeremy went over, those you do have to be a NYSEG customer to use. Okay, yeah. So this is a separate incentive available through muni customers, through, I believe, an association that they belong to. And actually, if there's some way you can increase the size of that slide, I can actually read the incentive amounts. Let me see, maybe if I get rid of the side-by-side. Whoops. Okay, I can barely get it here. So the incentives here are slightly lower for cold climate heat pumps. It's a $1,200 incentive rather than $1,500 for mini splits. Similarly, for a full system, it's $1,200 and $800 for a partial system. Oh, I'm sorry, I was misreading this. The cold climate heat pumps, centralized heat pumps, those are actually a little bit less common. That's where you have one central compressor rather than the external ones that you've probably seen previously. That has the $1,200 incentive. The Geo systems is a $1,200 per unit. So these are per unit and per system incentives rather than incentives based on the size of the unit. So these are considerably lower than the NYSEG incentives. And then there is a $750 per unit air source heat pump water heater incentive, which is actually pretty good. That's a pretty significant amount in terms of the cost of those units. And then the other two that are listed here, the water heater and the de-superheater are both ways in which a ground source heat pump or a geothermal system can also be used to heat your domestic hot water. So the short answer to the question is you can use all the tax incentives regardless of which utility you're a customer of, but the incentives for the units themselves are different if you are an Endicott Muni customer or indeed a customer of any Muni as opposed to a NYSEG customer. It's a bit wordy, but I think I've addressed that. So Mark, yes, you've already heard that. Just to repeat that everyone who registered for this webinar will receive a follow-up email with the deck and the recording. So there's a question here from Leilana Rigby in Schoharie County. Can you recommend someone to assess and recommend heating system? Well, you're in luck. It just so happens that even though we don't serve Schoharie County, I have a good friend who lives up in Schoharie County, and NP Environmental, who is our partner in Delaware County, also work in Schoharie. So I think the best course of action in this case is for you to go to our website at nynest.org, but instead of going to enroll, just go to the contact us form and send us your information there. Or if you like, you can message myself or one of my interns right here, your contact information in the chat. Other questions? Well, jump in at any time, but while we're waiting for folks to think of some questions to ask, I'd like to ask our installer partner from the Insulation Man, if you could talk a little bit, Jess, about how it works. So, someone will sign up on our site, we'll send their information over to you. What happens next? And if you could talk about sort of the differences, if it's a project where they're just getting insulation and air sealing, or they're getting insulation and air sealing plus a heat pump.
Yeah, so I mean, the next step in the process after that is a call from me. I'm the one that deals with all of the Nest referrals. And it's really more just to get a better sense of, what we think your house is going to need, getting you set up with all the paperwork. I handle all of that too, getting the paperwork to the customers. I'm with you for essentially the first third of the process until the project manager comes out. The approval time for the applications is fairly quick. I've seen a turnaround anywhere from a day to a couple of weeks. It depends on which method of submitting an application that you want. The rest of it after that really falls on us on getting out there for the project. When it comes to a project that is just insulation and air sealing, it's a little bit of a quicker process. There's a lot more logistics involved in coordinating a weatherization project with a heat pump project. Those usually take significantly more time, and a lot of that is administrative holdup and getting everything worded just right to get the approval through. We work with all of our other partners that Adam has mentioned earlier, and we try to make the process as easy as possible for the customer. I'll usually walk you through it as best as I can. And, I'm always around for any questions should something come up. It's also good if you have an emergency situation, if we already have an appointment set up for you. If something goes wrong in the meantime, give me a call and we can usually try and expedite the process a little bit. It is getting to a point where heating season is coming up and our weather likes to break major appliances when they get overworked. So.
Thanks very much. Just finding my way back from the chat. So I think I saw, yes, Mark T. I'm having trouble finding the HeatSmart Southern Tier enrollment form on your website. And yes, it's the form on that page. It's actually, the enrollment link is right on the homepage as well. So if you just click on that, you're good to go. Just to add a little bit to what Jess was saying, and thanks for that, Jess. There's sort of different streams in terms of financing. And so the partners, the installer partners can help you with the incentives and so forth, the tax credits. You will need to deal with that with your tax advisor or accountant. And, we could give you unofficial advice about how that works, but you need to go with them for that. In addition, the partners all have access to different forms of private financing that are available that they can tell you about and help walk you through. If you do qualify for assisted home performance or for Empower, almost always that's going to be working with Jess on those applications. And I will add, well, it was already said, but there's a incentive that is only available for a limited time. There's some federal money that came down to New York State to double the award for Empower from $10,000 to $20,000. But in order to get that higher amount, in addition to having to qualify, which you'd have to do anyway to go through Empower, you need to have the application approved no later than the 15th of September. So if you think that you do qualify, I would advise jumping on that real quick. And again, you only need to have that application approved by NYSERDA. Work does not have to be done. A contract does not have to be signed before the 15th, but NYSERDA must approve that application. Do we have other questions? So I know our air source heat pump installer, Dave Cherno, was hoping to get back before we finished up here. I can't play Dave Cherno on Zoom or on TV, but I will say a little bit more about heat pumps. I myself have a geothermal system in my home, and many years ago, under original ownership before Susan and Jess were involved, the insulation man did the insulation in my home. Oh, Dave's in the waiting room. Somebody want to let Dave in? And I'll finish my. I'm not seeing him for some reason.
Here.
Do you guys see him? He's in. Okay.
Here.
Yeah. So I got a geothermal system installed about 8 or 9 years ago. What motivated me to do that in an immediate sense was back in 2008. Number 2 heating oil prices spiked at over $4 a gallon. And in that year, I spent upwards of $7,000 on heating my somewhat large and at the time rather leaky home. And so I decided that even though it was going to require some financing, that in addition to getting some insulation done, and I got most of the house insulated, I was going to have a geothermal system put in, which I did. So even though I am still paying off that system on my NYSEG bill through the on-bill financing loan that was mentioned earlier, the least that I've saved in terms of money spent on energy versus, if I add up the money I'm still spending on electricity, because that's all I've got, plus payments on the loan, my lowest annual savings has been about $700, $750. When oil prices were super high in the beginning, and right now they're well over $1,000 in saving. So it's been a good experience for me. The incentives that are available now were not available then, with the exception of the tax credit. So the $5,000 tax credit is new. The NYSEG incentives are new. So Dave, now that you've joined us, maybe you could talk just a little bit about what the process looks like when you do an assessment and you go ahead and do work to install an air source system in someone's home. I'm not actually seeing Dave on my screen. Are we sure he's in?
He's calling in. His phone number is here.
Oh, is that the 4799 number?
Yep.
Okay, Dave, you are muted. There we go. No, still muted.
Can you hear me now?
We
Yep.
can hear you now.
Huh. That was weird. I was unmuted, but it wouldn't take the unmute command without *6. That's fine. So yeah, the process is pretty straightforward. Just get a hold of me and let us know, or my office manager let us know that you're interested in an air source heat pump system. We'll set up a meeting to come out. We'll do a site assessment. We'll look at the house. It's a good idea to have the installation man out there first and get that ball rolling before we get out there, but it can be done. There's plenty of times when we make the referral back the other way. Either way, it's a good idea to have the house audited before you consider, or at least as part of the process. So once we do the site assessment, we talk about the different methods of distribution. I mean, most people are familiar with wall units. There's a lot more to an air source heat pump system than a wall unit. There's sealant cassettes, there's air handlers that go in the attic, or sealant concealed units that go in the attic, or air handlers that can go in the basement. There's all kinds of ways to put the heating or cooling into the house, so that you can kind of zone things strategically and meet different aesthetic standards or different preferences. So once we decide on that, we do some technical calculations to size the system, and we design a system and then cost it out and send a proposal. And if the customer decides they want to go ahead with it, then we just go ahead and get the equipment ordered and as soon as possible, because lead times are challenging right now. And then we get it scheduled and get the work done. That's kind of the overall process. There's a really good financing avenue with NYSERDA and the Green Jobs Green New York for air source heat pumps. They started doing it years ago. It was not available to air source heat pumps a few years ago, but we did the first one in the state, along with NYSERDA. We were kind of the pilot for that process because we do so many whole house systems, and it works really well. Customers love it. It's a little bit of a process. It's not a 5-minute thing. It's a little bit more involved than that, but it is typically in our area. It's a target area. It's 3.49% fixed for 5, 10, or 15 years, and what we see with delivered fuel customers is that the savings on the oil or propane covers the heat pump payment and then some. So they're basically coming out cash ahead at the end of the month, and they have a new heating system. So that's pretty typical. The savings are pretty good, especially when it's coupled with an energy improvement. So you're getting the added benefit of cutting the heat loss and the air infiltration in the house, which just leverages the heat pump that much more. So it's a really good combination, and it just works really well, and it's extremely comfortable. Having different zones, you have a different zone for the bedroom, a different zone for the living area. You can control those temperatures independently, as opposed to having one central zone where you're kind of just a slave to one thermostat and the ductwork, which just isn't as a precise of a way to condition a house. But that's basically the overall process. It's a 12-year warranty on the equipment when we install it, and the labor, that kind of thing. It's very reliable equipment, and it's designed to run 15, 20 years, which they do when they're applied and installed correctly. So the biggest thing we see is improper design, application, and installation. There's a lot of people out there putting them in. There's not a lot of people out there that really know how to install correctly and how to design a system correctly. So there's a huge amount of work that we get calls for to correct existing installations, which we try to help people out when we can. But it is important to really vet out your installer very closely before making any commitment. But that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks very much, Dave. And yeah, just to reiterate one piece of that, one of the big differences between the two technologies is geothermal is really a whole house solution only, whereas air source heat pumps can be applied in one room or an entire house or anywhere in between. Do we have any other questions?
Really to leverage, Adam, as you know, to leverage the rebates and the amount of capital that's out there that the state is investing in, it's really a whole house solution. Probably 80% of what we do is whole house. That's otherwise you get a partial load rebate. They are very effective and they're great at a living room or a bed, and we do those types of applications. But to take advantage of the thousands of dollars that NYSEG or National Grid, whoever is contributing, that the New York State Clean Heat program, that's mostly for whole house. The partial load incentives are not nearly as aggressive. So it can be applied in either way, as Adam said, though. It's correct.
Yeah, and actually, Leilani just dropped in the chat probably our #1 misconception. And she asks, I've been told that heat pumps don't work well in very cold weather. What are the limitations? So the first thing I like to say when I'm asked this question is, where in the world are heat pumps used most heavily? And the answer to that is in Scandinavia and in Canada, which are not notably tropical countries. I think there's a few keys to this misconception. One is that, as Dave mentioned, sometimes these are not installed properly. One of the things that has to be done for them to be installed properly is the house has to be well insulated. So unless you know that your house has already been well insulated, and for preference relatively recently, you really need to get that done first. Heat pumps do not heat the air or the water, depending on how you're using the distribution, as hot as a conventional system. And that, among other reasons, means it's that much more important to have your house well insulated. Dave talked about the design aspect. A heat load calculation gets done for these systems. They will calculate exactly how many BTUs you need in your home based on the insulation situation, the size of the home, and other factors. You need to know how to do that properly. If you don't know how to do that properly, then you are very likely to end up with somebody who is not fully warm when they would like to be. Another issue is that equipment types and equipment brands matter. There's lots of good equipment out there in the market. There's some that's not so good. And I guess the last thing I'd mention is that there are air source heat pumps in use all across the country and across the world that are not cold climate heat pumps, that are used primarily for air conditioning in very warm places. Those are not going to do what you need to do to heat as well as cool. So the kinds of heat pumps that Dave and our other partners put in are specifically designed to be able to generate heat efficiently in cold climates. So I don't know, Dave, if you want to add anything to that, but it's an important question to address, obviously, because that's very widely believed. And that's actually one of the reasons why NYSERDA funds us to do this job, is to try to get the facts out there and also make clear that quality matters in terms of install and in terms of the equipment that is installed. And one of the roles we play together with the State Energy Agency is to competitively select our partners based on their experience and qualifications and so forth.
Yeah, Adam, I mean, you did a really good job of summing it up. A big problem is equipment selection. We see that all the time. I just got a call from a landlord in Ithaca here a while ago. We went out, he said, every time it gets really cold, my tenant calls me, it's a new Mitsubishi that I had someone put in. It's the only source of heat in the house. And when it gets really cold outside, it doesn't do anything. I go out there with a hair dryer, there's no ice. And so I went and looked at it, and someone had installed it was not a cold climate heat pump. It was a Mitsubishi, but it was their standard heat pump, which the output tank's at 20 degrees and it turns off at 4 below zero. So, and it was put in by a plumber and had wrong size piping. It was a mess. We fixed it, but it was just basically, there's a lot of, there's people putting them in that don't understand how to design. They're not, this is not a boiler. You just can stand back and say X amount of BTUs per square foot. These are engineered systems. And if you cannot properly engineer, you need to do an accurate load, like Adam said, and you need to understand, even more importantly, what that system is going to do at the design temperature. So, you can't just look at a BTU spec and say, oh, it's a 4-ton system. Well, what does that thing make at 5 degrees? What does it make at 5 below zero? What is the design temperature for the area? So there's those types of things. It's a technical system. It's not, it's not just something you hook a couple of pipes to and let it go. That may be okay if you're doing some air conditioning or whatever, but for primary heat in a house, the system has to be accurately engineered. That's probably the biggest thing I see, is that equipment improperly applied, wrong equipment selected, and no real understanding of what the house needs. And we do conventionally insulated houses all the time. 2x4 walls, fiberglass in the walls. Treat the rim joist, the basement, and the attic. You don't need to have brand new insulation in the walls. It's definitely achievable. We do it all the time as a sole source of heat or primary source of heat in existing houses. I've been doing it for a long time. Actually, that first one we did, the Green Jobs Green New York loan, was way out in West Windsor, and the customer's brother said it's never going to work. You need to do geo, and she has an older house with an oil furnace, and I designed the system around their design temperature. Did the load, and she never uses her oil furnace at all. And she has kind of especially one part of the house that's kind of drafty that they're treating now with siding and some foam under it, that kind of thing. But the point here is it can be done correctly. Heat pumps don't work well in cold weather. Well, that really depends on what kind of heat pump it is. So that statement is partially true. Those heat pumps they put in Virginia, Florida, conventional scroll compressor type heat pumps. No, they're not designed to do what we do. So it is a specialized avenue in HVAC. And if it's done properly, then yes, it's extremely effective. Do we put them in, old farmhouses with plank built walls, no insulation, drafty windows? No, I walk away from those jobs and advise them to spend their money on air sealing and insulation. You can't put them in anywhere, but 95% of the time, it's a great solution for any of the housing stock we have around here. If the housing stock gets some attention as needed, but it's usually not a big deal. It doesn't cost a lot of money to treat an attic, air seal and cellulose an attic, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do a rim joist or put barrier foam on a basement wall. So, and those things really are the low hanging fruit. But that's about the gist of it. So.
Thanks, Dave. So we're getting towards the end of our time. Just want to take a quick pause to see if anyone has any final questions before we finish up for this evening. All right. Well, I want to thank our partners from the Insulation Man, Jess and Dave from AirSource LLC for joining us, along with our remaining audience. And thank my colleagues, Star, Jeremy, and Anna for joining us. And watch your email. You'll be getting the information we promised very shortly. More information, as I've mentioned, is at nynest.org. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your evening.